Hey folks, welcome back to Game Geeks. I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. For the next 2 or 3 episodes, we're going to be talking about adventure books for the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition game. I am normally kind of shy about discussing adventures because I don't want to be the guy who tells you everything about it that's going on and then some unscrupulous player that knows about my show and their GMs don't. And if that happens, unscrupulous players, please tell your GMs about my show. I think I'm pretty applicable, and honestly, I'm very needy, and I need the love and support. Anyway, I normally am a little skittish around those, but right now what I'm going to tell you at the beginning is gigantic spoiler warning! Who said that? A gigantic spoiler warning, because I'm going into some detail on these. And if you are playing in these, I heartily recommend that you turn off this now and not watch anymore, because it will spoil your fun. Although, honestly, I always question that. Does it spoil your fun to know what's going on ahead of time? Technically, it is cheating, a little bit. But honestly, I'm the kind of guy who reads the Wikipedia page on a movie before I go see it. Because, and here's why, it's not because I'm a chump. Especially big superhero action movies, when there is so much going on that you sometimes miss the plot for the spectacle. But if I know vaguely what's going on, then I can pay more attention to the spectacle and still keep up with the plot that's going on in the movie itself. Plus, I want to know if I'm taking my kids to it, if something particularly horrific happens, then I can sort of pre-warn them or be there to comfort them when it happens. Like the entire Fantastic Four movie was kind of a horrific spoiler warning, but that's neither here nor there. So, the first one of these adventures that I've already given you spoilers for that I'm going to talk about is Princes of the Apocalypse. The first adventures that were made for this were the Tyranny of Dragons books, which was the Hoard of the Dragon Queen and the Rise of Tiamat. I'm not going to talk about those today. Those are a little bit harder for me to digest, and to be honest, what I've read of them, it was pretty railroady. Princes of the Apocalypse goes back to one of the more famous and popular Dungeons & Dragons settings, the Tomb of Elemental Evil. Now, it doesn't just reprint that, though. In fact, it barely it's resembling in name only from the Tomb of Elemental Evil. This expands it outwards into a very broad campaign that takes your players from levels 1 to 15. I like that, to be honest with you. Because it used to be you get modules for players of level 1 through 3. Next one, levels 1 through 3. Next one, 1 through 3. 4 or 5 later. Level 7 through 10. What the hell happened to 4 through 6? What am I supposed to do there? I don't get it. This sets it all up for you. Now, unlike the railroady nature of the Rage of Dragons, the Princes of the Apocalypse is like both of them. They're nominally set in the Forgotten Realms, because that's sort of becoming the default setting for 5th edition, at least for now. I'm about to break that in just a minute. But so everything in here is for a specific part of the realms, but it's a pretty damned unknown part of the realms. Underdeveloped. It's like there's not a lot of detail there for that, so you can paint it with your own brush. Additionally, not unlike the Adventurer's Guide to the Sword Coast, there's stuff in the back of this book about, all right, so you don't like the realms, you want to do it in Greyhawk. Well, that's okay, because the original Temple of Elemental Evil was in Greyhawk. It feels right to put it there. You know a lot about Greyhawk anyway. Bam, here's where you can put this adventure in Greyhawk. Gives you ideas for it. This region sandwiched between here, here, and there. Same stuff for Dragonlance. One of the other things that's popping up in most of these, at least in Princes of the Apocalypse and the Rage of Dragons, is the idea of factions. It's something I didn't talk about much in my 5th edition review, because there was a lot to talk about there. Factions are organizations, not necessarily empires or kingdoms, but organizations that have a significant amount of influence in the realm. So the organizations that you deal with, the factions, include the Harpers, the Zentarum, sometimes the Red Wizards of Thay, the Emerald Enclave, a bunch of druids, all of these things that have an influence in what's going on in the world that your players can work with or against in the particular adventure. Sometimes going from one adventure to the next, they can switch sides, as players are wont to do. It's a large sandbox series of dungeon crawls. Now, all of these are set, nominally at least, in the Desrain Valley, which is sort of tucked away between hither and yon and nowhere in the Sword Coast of the Realms, and that's where most of the adventure lies. You're wandering around in that, trying to figure out why so many weird weather and environmental happenstances are happening to this particular region. What's going on? Why are things falling apart? Why are villages being leveled? That makes no sense. And then from there, you get into the adventure itself, which stems from some very powerful elementals that have sentience that are trying to get a foothold in the world. And so the main dungeons of this are evil aspects of the four main elements. There are cultists of the four main elements. There are high priests and powerful wizards, magical beings that have come into existence because of these great cults. Now, the cults themselves include the cult of the Black Earth, the cult of the Crushing Wave, the Eternal Flame, cult of the Eternal Flame, and the Howling Hatred, and each one of those ties in. Then there's the symbol of the Elder Elemental Eye that brings them all together. That's your main baddie you're fighting toward the end of this. The dungeon crawls themselves, it's interesting because it's sandbox and it doesn't tell your players where to go. There are clues. When I was describing this to one of my players, it's like, oh, so in every one is it a different PL level? For like if you go here first or that place third? No, it doesn't change. So you gotta pay attention so you don't wander into the one that will kill you the quickest. But there are hints and clues, so you gotta think about this and research and not just go, murder hobo, kill more, take more stuff, and go to the wrong one first, because you will get pasted if you do that. I like that it's a thinking man's series of dungeon crawls embedded in that. Finally, each one of them, each one of the temples themselves, you got to deal with a lot of elementally themed things, like in the Howling Hatred, a lot of it's air elementals, a lot of lightning, some specific weapons, some specific guardians in that. One of the coolest things about this book is at the back of it, at the far back, you get some concept art of what things that were drawn and ideas for the campaign. One of my personal favorites are what the air cultists look like. They have membranes sewn into their armor so they can glide on winds. And the earth elementalist robes all look like they consist of very thin ceramic tiles that form the fabric themselves of the robes. Beautiful attention to detail in this, which I'll be honest, a lot of games don't get into because you're too busy going, okay, skip the fluff. Did I live or not? Did I kill it? Is it dead? Am I dead? What's going on? But if the level of detail is there if you want it. These are dungeon crawls. There's a lot of going into this place, killing things, separating them from their stuff, and going on to the next one. But it requires a lot of thought, and the factions that get involved with each level of it too also aid in either aiding or hindering you in what's going on. For instance, the Red Wizards are not your friends in this one. The Thaatians, I don't know what they call themselves, I've forgotten. The people from Thay who are wizards and they wear red are not particularly friendly to you in this thing. But the Harpers and the Zentarum will actually work with you because, let's face it, the Zentarum they're not good. They're pretty evil, but they want to rule the world, and they don't want someone else to do it instead of them. So it's one of these practical applications of evil that I sort of enjoy in games. It's a great adventure. It's a really great adventure. The reading through it's a lot of fun. It's interesting. It didn't bore me while I was going through it. It didn't bore me at all. And like I said at the beginning, contained in the back of this are various settings where you want to set this particular set of adventures, and how to adapt the factions to that particular world. For example, it gives you Aethys and Darksun, which is particularly interesting because you've got the elemental forces play a huge role in Aethys, huge role, and it deals with how to integrate that in to the fact that elementalism has a much broader application, a much deeper scale in Aethys than it does in, say, Greyhawk or the Realms. You also have Dragonlance. You also have Greyhawk, Eberron, and your own campaign world, which I find particularly interesting because it openly acknowledges, you know what, you may not be playing in a world of ours, or you might be playing in Mystara, or Birthright. You may be playing in Cerelia, the Birthright world. And you got to find ways to make this work in there. Again, sort of like you saw at the Sword Coast Adventurers Guide, I love the broad appeal. The fact that it can be applied over multiple places like that. Great adventure. You got to pay attention when you're doing it. It's not just blah, blah. And there are non-murder options to get in. Well, okay, there are no non-murder options, but there are some sneaky or more clever ways you can get into these places rather than just make a bloody, bloody mess on your way through. For Game Geeks, I'm your host, Kurt Wiegel. Good day and good gaming.